Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. In this little section, what I want to do is try to, again, pull back another word that we haven't used in a little bit or just discuss, which is really relevant to our proof, algorithm, right? Title of the subtitle of this lecture series. So we're trying to go from rhythm as our property that limits inefficiency of movement, through, the transfer of momentum through discrete objects, rhythm limiting that disorder, and we're going to building on that logic up all the way to algorithm. So how does that relate to speciality and sensorality, which other things we have been discussing, as well as physics? Well, an algorithm, if you want to, again, I don't know what the definition, the working definition, like if you typed into Google what it would say, but I might put it up on the screen, but a set procedure to accomplish a goal. You're trying to train this AI model right now today at Google to identify people who wear red shirts. I don't know, I wear a red shirt right now. So you're training an AI system, a computer model, a neural network, to identify something or to accomplish some goal, or to increase its sensorality, to personify a computer, to make it more human-like so it can make better decisions and more computations and better intuitive jumps. Is cognitive general intelligence even real? No, it's human beings, it's sentience, right? So you already have cognitive general intelligence in the form of life. And so your computers are, Y2K wasn't that long ago, and I don't think we've moved on. But I'm trying to logically stuff algorithm back into, again, speciality, and just because all of these words, every word relates, but we just have to try to tie it in for the proof specifically, not just random associations. But algorithm is both sensorality with a C and sensorality with an S. Because you literally take a neural network, and I don't know what chemicals they use, or a liquid core, or whatever physical material they use, and then they train the data from a human being. So it is sensorality, like it's an inanimate object. It's not going to achieve sentience, but you're training it on sensorality. So it is mostly, algorithms are sensorality with a C mostly, but it is sensorality with an S also. So it kind of contains both. And again, logically, we're talking about when you build a word or continue a definition or extend an axiom, you combine logic into single words. And that logic is completely contained within those words. We've proven that. So algorithmic. What can we say? How does that progress our axiom? What does that relate to sensorality? What do we censor? Again, how does YouTube's algorithm find the bad words? If you post bad words really big on the screen or say something really negative, that's what every major tech company is doing right now today, is figuring out how to train sensorality with a C, with sensorality with an S. But again, look how much logic we have to get through to define one word. And again, definitions are all relative and they build on each other. And all of this is not even on the internet. So, I'm not sure how well you guys are doing there, but your computer is not going to come to life and overtake you in the next 5 days, or 5 years, or 500,000 years, or ever. So that's also good. We do have a limitation of computing. Sensorality with a C will never overtake sensorality with an S, meaning in that specific instance, technology will never outrun intuition of sentient beings, ever. Period. Proof. Another one. Put it on my tab. Where's the proof? Proof, waitress. Garçon. Fuck is my money? Alright, but anyway, so the logic, sensorality, algorithmic goes to what? Momentumality. Obviously, again, momentum, rhythm, movement, inertia, momentumality, momentality. Sensorality, momentality. A moment is momentality. Momentality, movementality. Momentarily, briefly. Rhythm, algorithm. Where does al go? So that I just showed you again, jumping from these different operative words. Again, clearly, rhythm is iterated to be spelled different, so the syllability of rhythm and algorithm is different than rhythm. Clearly the same preserved pronunciation. But where does algo come from? Right? Algo in Spanish is something, but where does that prefix come from in rhythm? Again, clearly the base, the existence is rhythm, and then algo, something rhythm, something rhythmic, something algorithmic, but where does that word come from? So now we can just drop the prefix of sen. We're looking back at sensorality. Clearly that the sen or the cen at the beginning is a prefix, and then we can just have sorality, which unifies both as the base word of both c and the s. So they're both built on or. Again, I say I typically don't do the prepositions, but for fundamental axiomatic proofs, might as well do it completely. Well, again, the end logic is complete, but show as many steps as I can. Notice I have no C form would make a hard C. C, like, just literally the word sensorality starting with a C and S. That's sorality. Both times it starts with an S, but you can't put a C there because it would be chorality. It wouldn't preserve the pronunciation. So both of them are built on sorality. What is sorality? That's what we're trying to figure out. Sorality, sore, so, or. Sorrel. And now we have wordle and sorrel. And both of those forms that nobody really uses. No one says sorrel, no one says wordle. Sorality, wordality. No one says those words either. But now we can just define sorality as wordality. Again, before we defined sensorality as wordality. Now we can just cut off the prefix and just define sorality as wordality. And so what is wordality? Wordy. It's like word. It's a lot of words. Literally word Y. So sorality is wordy. It's redundant. It goes on too far. When you're grading someone's paper in high school English, you're just like, when does this stop? They're not making any point. You're in graduate school and you're looking at somebody else's thesis and you're like, where's the meat? What does this accomplish? When you're doing that, it's wordy. And so you're limiting that. And so obviously the word sore is well defined. Like if I work out and then I'm sore, we use that form of sorality all of the time. Getting closer. But sorality is redundant. And so just to finish up with this section, posing, just flopping all over, putting the different pieces together to get our whole picture. What is good and what is bad? We've laid out the foundations to have truly a rigorous logic as to what establishes a good word and a bad word, and it's not really morals, it's just something about efficiency or specificity, right? You can say the F word, fuck, and it applies to any situation. So it's not super specific, so that's why it's used a lot. But it's a bad word because, why? I don't know. But we don't have like anything super final or super insightful of what's good and what's bad in general, and a good word or a bad word. I don't know. Depends on context, I guess, who you are. But I have a quote, again, I don't know who this is, if this is someone like modern or if this is older, but I just like the insight of this. It says, I can't tell you definitely what's right or wrong, just some things are definitely right and some things are definitely wrong. I overall agree with that, and I think, again, it's not complete proof, but the intuition is very, very solid throughout. And again, all of the nuance in life comes from the gray area, the extremes of what's, obviously babies shouldn't be starved to death and murdered and, whatever. There's clear atrocities and then there's clearly things that are bad and clear things that are good, but then there's way more gray area where it's like pretty neutral, pretty indifferent. Definite is finite is not definite. Had that written down, covered that last episode. So I think I'm going to close that out here. I'm not exactly sure. No, this has been quick. So I'm recording a bunch. I'm not sure how long these go. But how about the sexuality bias? Let's talk about that. What is speciality? It's the sexuality bias. And the way to prove that is anytime what is the sexuality bias? It's the bias to use analogies that relate to sex outside of the context of sex because you don't know what to use. And so it's evident right now today in common conversation, in the slang lingo. If somebody says something and then somebody else says pause and then looks at them like this, they're saying that, that sounded sexual without saying that sounded sexual. That's exactly what that function of that empirical evident thing is. And so everyone tends to, if you don't know what you're talking about and you're trying to explain something, you're going to default to sexual sexual analogies, even if you don't think that's what you're doing, just because of puberty, because you're an individual with sexual orientation. But the use of the word pause in common, slang or current culture, pop culture, is the evidence of the sexuality bias being real, defaulting to sexual analogies. But you can also add, again, if somebody just says any statement and you're not sure what they're supposed to mean, and then you just say sexually. Like, I'm 30, I'm going to be 32 in like 2 weeks here. So if you're my generation, around my age, we would always just, somebody just said something stupid, or like you're not sure what they say, you just kind of sit there and just say sexually. So, but that's it's a real thing. It's kind of funny. But now we're going to work into, I'll finish this one here and then continue on with our derivation of sensorality.